In this video series, we take a deep dive into maximally lowering LDL cholesterol through diet, as LDL is the primary driver of our primary killer, and the lower the better. We'll talk about expanding the portfolio diet, talk about plant sterols, cholesterol-lowering supplements, foods, herbs, spices, you name it, ending up with a Dr. Greger in the Kitchen type video where I share how to make this cholesterol-lowering powder you can sprinkle on foods. Anyway, if you don't want to wait for each video to be released, I've compiled all the information into a brand new book available at NutritionFacts.org/books.
Of the top 10 take-home messages for the primary prevention of cardiovascular disease, take-home number 9 is that cholesterol-lowering statin drugs are considered the first-choice drug treatment for preventing heart disease in those with sufficiently elevated LDL cholesterol. Those side effects, like muscle pain or weakness, may impact up to a quarter of users. Regardless, whether you and your doctor decide to start drugs, the number one take-home message is that the most important way to prevent heart disease, the number one killer of men and women, is to promote a healthy lifestyle throughout life. Enter the portfolio diet for the maximum reduction of LDL cholesterol. There are 3 main added factors in our diet that raise LDL cholesterol: trans fat, saturated fat, and dietary cholesterol. Therefore, the tolerable upper intake levels of these 3 factors are essentially 0, since any intake above 0 increases LDL cholesterol concentration and therefore increases risk of coronary heart disease. So, trans fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol intake should be as low as possible. That means cutting back as much as possible on meat, dairy, eggs, and junk. And since partially hydrogenated oils must be removed from the U.S. food supply by law, all these other uses have been banned. So animal products are now the leading source of trans fat in the U.S. diet as well. Those eating a Western diet have circulating LDL levels around 120 milligrams per deciliter. No surprise, then, that those eating plant-based tend to have lower LDL, with lower levels the longer they have been eating a whole foods plant-based diet, as low as 70. But even though that's an excellent number compared to most people, if you remember from a previous video, there really isn't a safe cutoff. When it comes to LDL, the lower, the longer, the better, even if you're at low risk. That's where the portfolio diet can come in. By eating a healthy plant-based diet, you've already subtracted all the major foods that increase your cholesterol. The portfolio diet is a plant-based diet with a bonus, a portfolio of foods. 4 food types you can add to your diet to pull cholesterol out of your system. The food components include 1.5 ounces of nuts a day, good sources of plant protein, in other words, legumes like soy, other beans, split peas, chickpeas, or lentils. Lots of food with viscous fiber. That's the kind of slimy fiber found in oats, okra, eggplant, barley, and gram flax seeds. And finally, 2 grams a day of plant sterols from fortified foods or supplements. Dr. Greger is going to take a deep dive into phytosterols, but first, let's just see what this diet can do. The portfolio diet was tested head-to-head against statin treatment, plus a very low saturated fat diet in a 4-week randomized controlled trial among people with high cholesterol. And incredibly, those in the portfolio diet group had nearly a 30% drop in LDL cholesterol, similar to the 33% drop observed in the statins plus low saturated fat group. Simply by emphasizing the addition of 4 dietary components that are each likely to contribute 4 to 7% to overall cholesterol reduction, you have a diet that reduces LDL cholesterol with drug-like potency. In a systematic review and meta-analysis of controlled trials of the portfolio diet, we still see consistent LDL-lowering benefits, about a 17% drop above and beyond the currently recommended, relatively strict National Cholesterol Education Program Step 2 diet, along with lowering of systemic inflammation and an estimated 13% decrease in 10-year heart disease risk. And these results weren't even in individuals who all actually went on a portfolio diet. They were merely told to eat that way. Even just 2 educational sessions over 6 months telling people to adopt it can have a significant effect. I mentioned the 4 food components, but what does a sample menu look like? Nuts for snacks, soy foods and beans for plant protein, oats, barley, okra, eggplant, metamucil, and oranges for soluble fiber. And what's all this margarine for? They were using plant sterol fortified margarine, like Benecol and Promise Active, formerly known as Take Control. Yes, they have added plant sterols, but they're also chock full of salt, saturated fat, and artificial flavors. I mean, if you're going to use some sort of spread, this would be better than non-sterile fortified margarine or butter, but seems like a strange way to prevent heart disease. Plant sterols are naturally concentrated in sesame seeds and wheat germ, and also found in a variety of grains and legumes. To get that recommended 2 or 3 grams a day, though, you may have to take plant sterol supplements. In fact, should we all be doing that? That's what Dr. Greger will tackle next, and then see if there's any other cholesterol-lowering supplements that might be worth taking. Finally, what about all the other foods that lower cholesterol? What about expanding our portfolio to make some kind of Portfolio Plus diet with as many different cholesterol-lowering foods and herbs and spices as we can? Again, not as a replacement for drugs, but as a way to drive our LDL as low as possible with our fridge and pantry, in addition to anything we might have in our medicine cabinet.